All right, Lauren, we're good?
We are good to go. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our, I believe this is like our second Zoom brown bag. We apologize for not making it in court, but with everything going on in our world, we thought this would be the easiest way and kind of a nice way. You can have your lunch while you listen to Mike Darda talk about real estate and divorce situations. We have today Mike Darda with the Darda Group and Compass Realty here to talk with us about real estate and divorce. Mike Darda is a certified divorce real estate expert. Wow, okay, who's trained and experienced in guiding real estate transactions to a successful close while maintaining a neutral balance between parties. Mike and his son established the Darda Group back in 1988. They provide real estate services in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and all of the beaches. As a leading agent in Southwest Florida, Mike consistently averages around 200 closed transactions each year and has proudly served Lee County, Florida for over 30 years. He helps his clients achieve their real estate goals through a tried and true marketing and client care management plan. Mike's expertise and guidance help sellers navigate even the most conflicted relationships, and boy, oh boy, do we know that, to a successful resolution of real property assets. One of the things that I found very interesting about Mike's certifications is he's certified Divorce Real Estate Expert, and they call it CDRE. And some of the things that he took a course in, I guess it was a master course, was the autonomy of a divorce, the landscape of divorce and finance, introduction to divorce court, the ethics of certified divorce real estate experts, the psychology of neutrality, bias, and communication in conflict, how to sell a house in conflict, and the CDRE fair market valuations, which is amazing. I think maybe we should be taking this course. So with that being said, I will say today Mike's going to be talking about, he has a nice slideshow. He's going to be talking about the real estate market update, 4 steps to real property and due diligence, 8 family law order challenges to consider, and the birth of CDRE, Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert. And I would like to say, Mike has asked if we can save questions to the end. It's up to you if you want to just kind of blurt the question or you want to write it in the chat. It's completely up to you. So with that, Mike, welcome, and it's all yours.
Well, Melanie, thank you. And thank you everybody for being here today and having me. Again, Mike Darda, Compass Realty. I'm a certified divorce real estate expert through the Alumni Institute and been practicing here in Lee County for over 33 years. As Melanie mentioned, I do specialize in handling real property matters in the divorce. And I'm here to just speak to you today from my experience, my knowledge on the issues in real estate that plague family law cases, and to help bridge the gap in knowledge between lawyers, so lawyers can actually help their clients handle issues that come up and questions that may come up. Questions like, hey, do I sell the house? Should I refinance the house and keep it? So we'll cover some of that on this call. We're going to go over some of the main sticking points that I've noticed as a CDRE and help you bridge those gaps on those issues when they come up on your cases. So again, if you can put your comments and your questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end that we can go over that. So I just got to get my next screen here and we'll get started. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a market update. So you can answer the question of, what's going on in the real estate market, what trends, what shifts are we seeing, and help you answer questions for your clients that they may be asking you, and to try to decide how to handle the real estate piece in the case. We're going to go over 4 steps to due diligence. What are the sticking points in the real estate transaction that we can help minimize conflict by dealing with them up front? And we're going to go over what are some of the most common things that we see on the real estate side in orders that affects our ability to market the property and create challenges. And then we're going to go over what is a certified divorce real estate expert and how can this help you? So let's get into the market update. We're looking strongly to real estate economists to help guide us on what their predictions are for the future of our real estate market. We have never come out of a pandemic before, and the effects are unprecedented on the real estate market. On the screen, you have a quote there from Nadia Evangelou. She's a senior economist with the National Association of Realtors. And as you can see from the quote, they are predicting that our market is going to continue to stay strong. However, they're foreshadowing that we're going to see rising inventory now that many of the COVID restrictions are being lifted. I guess it remains to be seen if we're going to have those back. But for now, people are feeling more comfortable listing their homes, more comfortable with buyers and realtors going into the houses and making those transitions. So we're definitely going to see more inventory as a result of that. So here are some of the actual market statistics, and these are for specifically Lee County, Florida. They're from our local board of realtors. And the big headline is the price increases. We've been hearing a lot about that. The actual number right now, year over year, is 29% appreciation. Now, it's important that that doesn't mean every home has risen 29%. It is just an average. So some have gone up faster than others. Some have gone up slowly. So don't dust off a year-old appraisal and add 29% and call it a day. We wouldn't want to do that. What's driving this, of course, is we have very low supply in relationship to the high demand that we're experiencing. So this is causing these huge increases. Now, days on the market has been affected as well. The average days on the market for Lee County for single family homes right now is 19 days compared to 70 days last year. And this is critical because days on the market is a form of currency. Days on the market greatly affect the sales price. The shorter the time on the market, the higher the sale price will be in comparison to the listing price. The longer a home sits on the market, the less money the home will sell for. So we're going to circle back on that in some ways that will affect our cases. Inventory, in July, we have 80% less homes than we did in July 2020. How that impacts the market, we look at it as we call an absorption rate. Right now, the current rate of sales versus supply, last year we had 4 months supply a year ago, and now it's less than a month supply. What that means is if nobody else listed a home for sale at the current rate of sales, how quickly would we sell out of all the inventory on the market? So right now, 0.8 months supply, that's very tight. To give you a perspective on this, it's considered a seller's market if it's anything less than a 6-month supply. Generally, that means prices will be going up and the sellers have leverage. If it's over a 6-month supply, we consider that a buyer's market and prices tend to go down. We've started to see our inventory grow again. We had a record low in May, and it's been climbing at the rate of about 5.1% faster than we saw last year as far as the number of people putting their homes on the market. In some cities like Cape Coral, we're actually seeing the number of homes on the market increase by almost 10% a week. Interest rates, well, they're hovering around 3%. That's, of course, what's fueling this great market that we have. The Fed has come out and said that the rates will remain low through at least the end of this year. So what do the next 12 months look like? We're expecting pricing will remain high. However, August was our first glance at the rise in pricing starting to slow down. Inventory starting to grow. That's actually good news for buyers. They're going to have more homes to choose from. The market will remain skewed towards sellers, though, and buyers will have more inventory to look at, and they will start to see those days on the market rise, and that's going to reduce the opportunity for these bidding wars that we've been seeing. So what we're starting to see is the first signs of stabilization. Prices will not continue to rise at the rate they have been the last few months. Here is an example of the Cape Coral inventory. It bottomed out at 305 active single family home listings in March. That was at the time just a little over, we were actually selling in our marketplace almost 300 homes a week in Cape Coral, overall, all the realtors. So now we're back on the climb. We're up in the 500s. Appraisals. This hot market has affected the shelf life of appraisals. Right now, appraisals have at maximum a 30-day shelf life. It used to be we consider an appraisal good for maybe as much as 6 months. So what this all means to you is if you're using appraisals from 6 months ago, it is long expired. You need a new appraisal. The market is changing and we have just a very short life on appraisals. Just to explain that a little bit, we just talked about how the appreciation is 29% year over year. That means every month that property is going up or more than 2% in value. So if you look at it, the anatomy of an appraisal, they're based on sold comparables. So even if here in August, you get an appraisal, you look at the comps, many of them closed maybe beginning of this month or they closed in July, it all looks pretty fresh, right? Well, those comps are nearing a month old. And don't forget, those sales were negotiated between buyer and seller 30 to 45 days before that. So you really have almost 2-month-old or 3-month-old information on your fingertips with a current appraisal. I'll show you an example. This was a case I was assigned that appraised for $337,000 in May of this year. We listed the property shortly after appraisal. We closed the property about 2 months after the appraisal for $370,000. Okay, that's about a 10% increase in a 2-month period of time. So that's when we say appraisal may not necessarily mean market value, that's what we're talking about. You can imagine if we actually had to list the property at the appraisal, how much money we would have left out of the deal for the sellers on this. Clients and COVID. This is an interesting development here. A year ago, and rightfully so, many sellers were concerned about buyers coming in their home, realtors showing their property, and exposure to COVID. We developed a whole suite of protocols to minimize the impact of that. But there were many people that just chose not to even put their homes up for sale. That has largely dispersed now. It's very much business as usual. Motivated sellers are generally not putting any COVID showing protocols on their properties. They want as many buyers to look at it as possible to get the highest and quickest sale. However, we are seeing that unmotivated sellers are using COVID as an excuse not to allow access to the home. Okay, so who would that be? That could be the in-spouse that's not very excited about selling the home and moving. It was often, many times, tenants are using this as an excuse not to allow the house to be marketed and shown because they may be looking at the marketplace and seeing if they move, they're going to have to pay a higher rent where they're going. So remember days on the market as currency impacting the sale price. If we have an in-spouse that is causing obstructions to showings, that's causing delays in the sale and adding days on the market, it will impact how much that property will sell for. One of the things I'm experiencing is that causes heightened conflict in divorce and selling homes are surprises. The seller is expecting one thing, they're hoping for one thing, and then they lose that and it's devastating to them. So I'm going to give you 4 steps that you can take to prevent that. And it's especially important when you're getting paid out of the sale of the property. And so one of the things is you want to verify the title of real property at the very beginning of the proceedings. Some important things to know is who is on the title? Is there a family member? Is there a sibling or a parent? You know, sometimes the parents may have helped the couple buy the house a while back and they might be on title. Many of our older clients put a son or a daughter on title with them. We also want to find out, are there any liens. So everyone remembers that they got the mortgage lien. Nobody forgets that one, but what they often do forget are special assessments. This is very common in places like Cape Coral, where they put in water and sewer in big parts of the city. A couple years ago, if they had this happen, they would have gotten about an $18,000 assessment. Many people chose not to pay the $18,000, in which case the city rolled it into the tax bill. The tax bill, of course, is paid and the mortgage payments out of the escrow. So they may have forgotten that they have this assessment. So now they put the home up for sale. They enter into a contract with a buyer. And in the fine print of all those pages of the contract, there's a line that could say that the seller is to convey the property free and clear of any liens. Title company following that, we sit down at the closing table, and there on the statement is an $18,000 charge coming out of the seller's proceeds. You can see how that might cause some conflict. Associations, especially condo associations, famous for having assessments for capital improvements. Maybe they put a new roof on, maybe they remodeled the pool area. So those surface. Solar liens, we're starting to see more people put solar on their houses. They're financing this. And solar systems could easily be a $30,000 or more lien on the property. Now, in some areas of the country, it may be different, but here I can tell you from experience, buyers are generally not willing to assume those loans. So they're going to have to be paid off, most likely out of the proceeds of the sale of the home. PACE loans. These are loans that people get for energy efficient improvements to the home, like new windows or a new air conditioner. They may put those in on a PACE loan a few years back, 2 or 3 years ago, completely forgot about it, but it's got to be settled. This will also uncover, are there liens for child support? Are there tax liens? Okay? Are there other judgments? Remember, these people, and I don't have to tell you, they're going through a very difficult time in their life. So a lot of stuff may be happening. Maybe they did fall behind on their taxes. Maybe something came up where they got a judgment. Are there any defects on the title? Defects, mistakes on the title can wreak havoc in a closing. We get to toward the end of the closing. Now we've got a big problem we've got to fix, and it's going to cause delays, and not all buyers are willing to hang out and wait for those delays to be resolved. So at the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you a resource where you can go and get this information on our portal for free, no charge to you in your cases. Obtain a mortgage payoff. What a mortgage payoff isn't, it's not the statement that they get in the mail that says they owe whatever. So the balance, the actual payoff will be different because of interest and the time of the closing, and actually could be off by a couple $1,000s. So you want to get a true mortgage payoff. By doing so, you're also going to discover, are they current on the mortgage? Is there a forbearance in place? If so, when does it end? How has it affected the payoff? We just had a case recently where on the intake of the listing, the sellers shared both with us, both spouses, we owe $350,000 on the mortgage. Great. We get the payoff and there's a surprise. They were in forbearance and the lender says now they owe an additional $22,000 in interest. They were in a COVID forbearance program. So that's a surprise we do not want during the pending process. It also prevents them from having something we call phantom equity. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but phantom equity is when the spouses have an idea that they're going to get a certain amount out of this property to buy their next home, to move, and to maybe pay off debt. And they find out that that is not the case, and that can create some serious conflict. You also want to determine fair market value. Okay, and what fair market value isn't, it isn't what Zillow says fair market value is on their Zestimate. Have you ever sold a home where the bank just relied on the Zillow's estimate, right? It doesn't happen. Banks are going to get a formal appraisal. So if you think about it, if it doesn't happen in the lending industry in the real estate industry, why would it be acceptable in the divorce process? So we don't want to use Zillow as our estimate. It's just not acceptable in a family law case. Our standards need to be higher than that. So the reason Zillow is off many times is Zillow is using an algorithm of sales in the area to give a ballpark of value. The value they're giving is not based on the present condition of the home, and it's usually going to be off from true market value. Okay? Zillow didn't go in the house and see that the house needs significant repairs, or perhaps it's completely dated, or on the other side, they didn't go in a house to see that it's been completely remodeled and renovated. So that's why you want to get eyes in the property. So here are some ways to get the proper fair market value. Obviously, an appraisal, hiring a licensed appraiser to appraise the property. Okay? In today's market, remember, appraisals are not necessarily the true market value and only have a 30-day shelf life. The most accurate way is to get a fair market evaluation from a local real estate agent. Real estate agents, they have their finger on the pulse of the market, and they know what the market trends are. They got the buyers in their car on a daily basis. They're out there seeing the inventory that's coming on the market. They're seeing what's going pending, and they can take all this into consideration. The market analysis from a realtor can also give you the value from multiple dates. They can give you the value from the date of filing, from the court date, or from the orders, right? And you can compare those. It is by far the most accurate idea of true market value. And here's why. Appraisers rely mostly on closed sales. We already talked about how those can be dated. Realtors have the advantage that they can also look at pending sales. These are homes that have just gone under contract but have not yet closed, but we do know what they were asking. They also can look at the inventory. What are we up against in the marketplace, and what are they asking? It's not unusual when we do a fair market evaluation in a community that the average of the most recent sales is, say, $350,000. But very similar homes in the same community that are pending could be 360s, 370s. And then when we look at the active inventory, we find that there isn't any. There's no listings for sale in the neighborhood, or maybe there's one at $399. So realtors have the advantage of blending that all together and coming up with the highest realistic price that the home will sell for. Another advantage with the real estate agent approach is you can usually have that market analysis in a matter of hours or days, as where appraisers are generally pretty backed up with refinances and the sales pace in the market now. It's going to typically take you a few weeks to get that appraisal. Okay, so if you do go the route of an agent, make sure that the agent understands the purpose of the fair market valuation. Agents, they're not familiar always with divorce situations. They may be approaching this like they're trying to win the listing. They're used to being up against maybe one or two or three other agents that they're competing with to try to get this listing. So one way they try to give themselves an edge is they may put the fair market evaluation toward the higher end of the pricing spectrum. The last thing they want to do is lose a listing to another agent that said that they can get the seller more money. What does the seller do? They often gravitate to the agent that says they can get them more money. And again, that's creating phantom equity. So be clear with the agent. We need a fair market evaluation of what this property is truly worth, what it will sell for now in the shortest amount of time. You want to obtain a loan approval if there is a buyout situation. Think about it. If you were selling your house and a buyer came to you with a sale contract, there's a financing contingency, the closings in 30 or 45 days, would you sign that contract and take the home off the market without at least getting a pre-approval or a pre-qualification letter? Okay. If they were paying cash, are they providing proof of funds? Okay. Why is that important? Because sometimes buyers make cash offers, and guess what? They don't really have the cash. They're counting on that other property to sell somewhere else to provide the cash. So that's a major contingency we need to uncover. So why would you go to court and make orders or draft agreements for one party to buy the home from the other party without having a pre-approval? That's putting the cart before the horse. So I'm going to give you some tips on financing so we can take care of this up front. One of the rules in lending that comes into play in divorce real estate frequently is what's called a 636 rule. And this rule comes into play when borrowers are using perhaps the alimony or child support or other payments to qualify for the buyout. And this is critical because the rule says they must show 6 months of payments received and that they will get at least 36 months of payments after the closing. So if one spouse is trying to buy the other out and they just started receiving these payments and they don't have 6 months worth, but they need it to qualify, they may not get that loan. Here's an example would be, let's say there's an in-spouse, okay, and maybe they don't have a great income, but they want to do the buyout and they're relying on child support and alimony to qualify. Let's say they have a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Okay, so the in-spouse, a single mom, is trying to qualify, and the rule of 636, remember, says they have to have 36 months of payments coming in. Yet that 16-year-old is only going to have 24 months or less of payments coming in. So that income will not be able to be counted on for their qualifying. Debt to income. This is also a quick way you can kind of size up, is your client able to do the buyout? So general standard is they're going to need a 620 credit score minimum. The house payment should be no more than about 30% of the total overall income. And the overall debt load, including support payments, cannot be more than about 40%. These are just some rough numbers, but if they make, say, $5,000 a month, but they plan to buy out the other spouse and that's going to cost $3,500 a month, they're not going to get a loan. Okay. Also, loan to value. Okay, the buyer is not going to be able to finance more than 90% of loan to value. So they got to have that 10% to apply towards the purchase. So run the numbers, see if it's even possible before filing a motion. So we're going to move on now to some common order challenges that we have as it relates to real estate. So the time limit on a refi. So if there's a possibility that there is going to be a refi, we should put a time limit on that. Don't leave it open-ended. A fair time for a loan is 90 days. And this leads to something else we sometimes see, and that is a first right of refusal. So this would be where maybe in the orders it says that the spouses have an opportunity to buy the house, and if they pay at or above whatever offers we have on the table. This really hamstrings the marketing effort because realtors do not want to show property. Buyers don't want to waste their time looking at properties that they don't know the outcome, that they don't know they can actually move forward with. So when it comes to this, make sure you're putting a time limit on the first right of refusal and not the open-ended that they can bid it up. When you put, when the date is of the properties to be listed, it's helpful if you put it to be clearly defined. For example, the date the listing is signed, or you can say the date the property is to be put in the MLS. If you do put the date that it's to be an MLS, be mindful of the timing on that. You can't, if you call me on a Monday and tell me it's got to be on the market on a Wednesday, and I look at the house and it's a wreck, we're going to need more time. A perfect house that's ready to show and is staged well usually needs about 7 days to get it up and running on the market with all the staging and getting it all photographed and the marketing in place. So if you have any questions on that, call me and ask what is a realistic time in a particular case. As is, okay, as you already know, as is condition could become an issue if both parties don't have the money or are just not willing to make repairs. As is really hamstrings the marketing because it's such a negative in the buyer's eyes. So now if it's an as is in the orders, the realtor's got to put it's to be sold as is in their marketing. What does a buyer think when they hear as is? What do you think when you see a used car and it's as is, there's no warranty, right? So they're going to wonder what is wrong. They may mitigate that by putting a lower offer in just to protect themselves. And they're certainly going to do every inspection they can think of to uncover what could be the as is problem. Also, marketing a home as is could potentially make it very difficult to sell if there's an issue that would prevent the buyer from obtaining financing or insurance. Common ones we run into in Southwest Florida, being that we're in the Hurricane Alley here, any roof that's older than 15 years old is extremely difficult to insure. Most companies will not insure it. And if you do find one, it's going to be at a substantially increased premium. The roof may look great. It may not have any leaks on it, but just the fact that it's over 15 years old will make it uninsurable. And by definition, also make it unfinanceable because the bank won't finance if you don't have insurance. We also run into in Southwest Florida, polybutylene piping. People don't even know they have it until a home inspection is done. And insurance companies don't like poly. They will often not insure a house. In fact, I've never seen one insure a house with polybutylene piping. That's a $5,000 minimum repiping job. Challenger electrical boxes. We run into this stuff. It sounds weird, but we run into it every month where we find one that hasn't upgraded their electrical box. Challenger electrical boxes have issues that insurance companies won't insure them. That means there's no financing available. So if it's as is, now we've just boxed ourselves out of all the buyers trying to get loans, and we can only work with cash buyers. That's a very small segment of the market, and that'll affect the price that we can get on the property. Orders with fixed pricing in there. That really is difficult for a realtor because the market is constantly shifting. It's like a tides in the ocean coming in and out. And if we have a fixed price in there without the ability to respond to the market, it can cause the home to stay on the market too long and again, net them less money. Phantom equity. We already discussed that and how that may not be a reality. We have to protect against that because it causes so much conflict when they think they're getting a certain amount of money and they're not. So we're going to go into how that could be happening with price reductions. Many times orders we see have the price to be reduced this much by this time. Okay, that's not a great thing for us to have in an order as realtors because it totally handicaps our marketing effort. We already talked about the average time on the market being 19 days. So what if an order has price to be reduced 5% if not sold in 30 days? Okay, you can already see how that hamstrings us because really we need to be having that price reduction conversation at 19 days if the home's not sold. Buyers are out there looking, they see homes selling quickly and they see this house now 19 days on the market, not sold. What are they thinking? They're thinking, what is wrong with this house? Is it overpriced? Okay, but we can't make the change then because the order says 30 days. So we wait till 30 days, we make the change that was needed. And now what is the buyer thinking? 30 days on the market, still not sold. If that buyer is going to make an offer, do you think it's going to be full price? Probably not. It's maybe 5, maybe 10% less than asking price. And the 5% thing, where does that come from? So if we dictate a percentage there, that also may or may not be the right price adjustment. The way we make price adjustments is we don't just grab a percentage. We actually look at the showings. How many are we getting? The feedback from those buyers. What are their comments on pricing? And we're also going to do a new fair market evaluation to see if there's been any changes in our competition out there and make a price adjustment recommendation based on those factors. We may decide it needs a 10% adjustment to get moving. Or in some cases, just a little as a 3% adjustment will turn these showings into offers. So that's best to be left up to the realtor. Personal property, because all personal property has to be divided at the time the house goes on the market. It's good to address this in the order. We've had cases where this is not addressed. And in one recent case, we had an outspouse that was going into a luxury property and removing furnishings and decorating items that they wanted, which of course left our staging in a shambles. That same transaction, we had an in-spouse that suddenly rented an apartment way smaller than the house and decided they want to leave a bunch of things behind. Well, that created an issue with the buyer that almost destroyed the closing date. So we definitely want to have it really clear, who's getting what and what needs to be taken out, especially on furnished transactions. If the house is being conveyed furnished, we've had situations where if this is not spelled out clearly who gets what, they may get in an argument over what they can take. So make that clear in the orders. Proceeds. This is important. How are the proceeds going to be divided? That's great to have in the order. It makes it real clear where the money's going. We don't want an 11th hour fight over this issue. If it needs to go to an attorney trust account, you might consider, especially the party living in the home. They may need some money to be able to move out, to hire movers, to rent a place. Okay, remember, I'm trying to motivate somebody to move, and it's hard to do if they have no money and can't afford to make the move. If they're worried they're going to be out on the street, they're going to fight us. Put a name of a realtor in the order. When you do this, it actually is a very helpful thing. It can be very difficult when clients are interviewing us and other realtors are telling them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. When my name is on an order, I have the liberty of telling parties what they need to hear. So in fairness, interview other agents before you put a name. First right of refusal. Sometimes we see in orders that the spouses have the right to buy a property, okay? That they have the right if a higher offer comes in. And if you do this, we recommend putting a time limit on that. So why a specialist? As a family law attorney, you can imagine what a disadvantage when you see clients that are being represented by a personal injury or criminal or civil attorney. We use specialists all the time in divorce and family law. So for example, quadros or forensic CPAs or child custody evaluators. So why not for real estate? Real estate is often the largest asset in the case. It is the most complex asset from a financial perspective, legal and emotionally. And divorce listings are definitely not business as usual in real estate. Many clients, they may want to use a friend, or they may want to use a discount broker instead of a specialist. Now, in normal situations, that may be fine, but this is a complex situation. If you have this situation, we can be a resource for you here as well. Being a member of the MLS, we often can provide a track record on an agent that's being considered. In the past, when we've done this, it's not unusual to find that that friend may have only sold 4 houses in the last year. They may not even be full-time. We may have found that the discount broker is a rock star. They sell 60 homes a year. And unfortunately, though, if you look at the addresses, all those homes are primarily, say, in Lehigh Acres, and your client's selling a golf course home in Bonita Springs. So feel free to reach out to us as a resource there. If you have a situation where they're using an agent who is not a CDRE, there's a couple questions you can ask that can really help obtain, whether this is a good agent that understands the process here. If that's the case, here's some sample questions. If there's a restraining order, how do you handle showings, open houses, or requests by the outspouse to gain access? How will you handle legal questions? For example, they may ask their realtor, how do I get reimbursed if I make repairs to the home? That's a legal question, not a real estate question. Make sure the agent knows that they should stay in their lane. What is your remedy if one party refuses to sign paperwork? What's your plan if showings are declined and buyers are having a hard time getting access? How do you handle it when parties don't agree on things like the list price, offers, repairs, and showings? And if we have to go to court on an issue, do you testify? We're going to provide for you a full list of questions. There's about 20 of them, and we'll add them to the chat feature here in the Zoom at the end of the presentation. So how does an agent become a CDRE? Our faculty of attorneys are certified family law specialists. And our curriculum and our program is based on the criteria set forth for attorneys who become CLFSs. The application requirements are that we have to be interviewed by a family law attorney on their faculty. There is a minimum number of transactions required to demonstrate expertise, and only 12% of all applicants are accepted into the program. It's an intensive 6-month program where we learn the anatomy of a divorce. That's what you guys go through. How to be neutral and unbiased so that we can get the buy-in from the sellers. How to identify and handle high conflict situations. We are trained in how to deal with people that don't want to sell or people that can't agree on a price. We have specific communication protocols. And we have a specific process for divorce listings that's completely different than normal real estate. And you might say, well, how different could it be? Remember, regular real estate agents, they are trained to handle normal sales where both spouses are in agreement. They both are on the same page. They want to sell. They're super excited about where they're moving to. And this is a very happy experience for them. We know divorce real estate isn't quite the same. And we have ongoing training, education requirements, mentorship requirements, study groups with other CDREs nationwide, and continually are doing case study reviews. Okay, those requirements are necessary to maintain our CDRE designation. The status, we can actually lose it if we don't keep up. Our code of ethics sets the standards for realtors in family law cases. We go above and beyond the normal National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics. We are at an arm's length during the transaction with the buyer and the buyer's agent. And we have no vested interest in the sale. We're not going to try to partner or buy the property ourselves. We will not work with one spouse, okay, on another purchase during the divorce. What does a regular agent do in that case when the spouse calls and says, hey, can you help me find my next home? They gleefully will go out and start showing them property. Okay, what does that do for the trust level of the other spouse? That now when an offer comes in and maybe it's a little lower, do they really think that realtor's got their back, or are they just trying to push this through because they have 2 commissions on the line? That won't happen in our case. We remain neutral, and we also put their needs above our own. This is not a quick commission check for us. So, we're always in the best interest of the client, and that isn't always, selling the home. Maybe they're trying to keep the house, and we're here to help them if that's the case. So what do CDREs do? We educate the family law community so that they're educated and informed by a credible expert on things that they need to know about real estate. So that way, as you advise and problem solve and strategize with your clients, you have an extra edge. We are a resource for you. Anything real estate, if you don't have the answer, we have the information and the professionals at our fingertips for title searches, for fair market valuations where the equity is maximized, for problem cases, any research that you might need. There's many differences in the process for selling a divorce listing versus a non-divorce listing. And I'm going to briefly go through those. First off, when you as an attorney call us into a case, we are going to do what we call an intake. We have a form with questions that we ask both parties. We do it individually. And the goal of that is issue spotting. Are there discrepancies between the two? Once we get them through the intake, we then do the walkthrough. And this allows me to note the condition of the property. It's not only for an accurate fair market valuation. We don't do a presentation. I'm only there for 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm there to look for red flags. This is only done with the in-spouse, not both. And the reason I'm even going to take pictures of what I see that are red flags. The reason we do this is, don't forget, the out-spouse may have moved out 6, 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. When they moved out, everything was perfect. The house was in great condition. Every blade of grass was in its place. But now, this in-spouse has gone from a 2-income home to 1-income home. There may be deferred maintenance. The grass may be tall. I've seen green pools. You get in the house and you might find, the conditions pretty rough, and maybe they got a new puppy that hasn't been potty trained yet. So we discover all this. It affects market value, and that out-spouse had no idea why we're recommending perhaps an adjustment there. Communication with clients. We have to keep them equally communicated with and up to date on the process of showings and be sensitive to their situations. You never want a party to feel alienated from the process. A non-CDRE will typically communicate only with the in-spouse, not the out-spouse, causing spouses to think up stories in their mind. So we communicate with both parties always, but we don't disclose when or where to make sure that we're keeping everything neutral. The listing appointment. The listing appointment, we meet with them individually. It's 2 separate meetings in a neutral location. Usually the in-spouse we have signed in the property, and then our second meeting is with the out-spouse. So we never have them together so that it keeps it safe. And also, one reason we also don't want to have them together is because that way they can speak clearly. They don't have any biases. They don't have to worry. They can be open with us, tell us what we need to know to get this property sold. Our communication with attorneys involves keeping counsel informed as a neutral expert, so you don't have to rely on your clients. This ensures there are no last-minute surprises or any problems that can be addressed, that you could have addressed with advance notice. Okay, who likes to receive that phone call when the parties are at the closing table and the settlement statement's not correct? Okay, one of my jobs is to ensure that all the orders are followed and shepherded through the closing. This involves overseeing the closing officer and making sure that the closing documents reflect what's in the order. So in closing, the house plays an important role in the client's next chapter, and we exist to set them up for the best success in their future. So now let's see if there's any questions.
So there's no questions right now on the portal. Does anybody have any questions?
Anybody?
Well, if we could always address those later, feel free to reach out to me if you think of any. And so if unless any pop up here, I'll just do a quick recap. Here's your takeaways. The market, it's still trending strong for sellers, but inventory is increasing and we're heading towards a more stabilized market. Your due diligence with the title and mortgage payoff and do that homework and the value of the property. And also remember those important things to consider when writing your orders. When you write them, think about the real estate piece. How will that order affect the property, especially the proceeds, dates that might need to be in there, personal property, and naming a realtor. And consider a CDRE as the best potential source to help you in that. And so
there is a question. When in the process should someone contact you?
Yeah, great question. There is we like to get involved at as early as possible. It's better to be early in the process than late in the process. That gives us more time to deal with potential issues. If we discover there is a title issue, we discover that there is a discrepancy on payoffs of anything, also gives us time to deal with maybe any issues at the property. So I would just say the earliest that you can get us involved, the more time we have to do a better job to maximize the resale value of the property. Okay, so I think that's all we have on questions. Okay, and so I'm going to give you a contact information. This is my website to the Alumni Institute. This will give you an access to a document portal. You can put right in there any requests you have for title searches, for us to get involved to discover those things we talked about. There's no charge. Those services are free to you. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. The number I'm giving you there is my cell phone, 239-851-6494, or email me, mikedarda@gmail.com with any questions. So thank you, everybody, for participating today. It's been a privilege to talk with you.
Thank you. Mike, I do have a quick question. Would
Yes.
the slideshow be available? Can we get a copy of that, or?
Absolutely. We'll send that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, if nobody else has questions, thank you, Mike, for your hour and talking to us about this. I think it's going to be definitely a great source for us, especially when we have clients wanting to sell the property and whatnot. So we thank you. And if anybody has any questions, I'm sure they wrote down your contact information.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a privilege. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Mike.